Hello and welcome to the first episode of Unbox Football. I'm hoping to turn this channel into the one that you go to when you actually want to learn something about a team or a player or a manager or a philosophy in football or something more detailed, something that scratches more than just the surface. And the first team that I want to talk about today is Wolves. Out of nowhere, Wolves. Why? Because, well, Molyneux's 20 minutes in that direction, and it's the team that I watched as a little boy. I've watched every minute of every game this season as well. So it's the team that I know best more than any other team in the world. And I want to take you through Nuno's tactics, his philosophy, his system, and then talk about whether this is a permanently good Wolves team or just a temporary blip challenging for Champions League, and whether it can stay this way or whether it's all going to dissipate and fall to pieces. But we'll start with Nuno's players and tactics and system. I think the best way to start is start here. So I've got my overhead rig over here, hello, and let's take you through Nuno's tactics philosophy. So let's start with the way he plays football. Always with Nuno, it's three at the back, starting with Patricio in goal and John Ruddy as his backup. And then we're moving into the three first. Bowley plays on the right-hand side. Connor Cody, his club captain, in the middle, and always in the middle. Very special player is Connor Cody in this system, the role that he plays. And then we've got Romain Saïss on the left. Always plays three at the back. They are, in terms of chemistry, they have 100% chemistry, these back three. Of the three players there, Bowley is definitely the best out-and-out defender. I would say that he is probably the best defender outside of the top six. Connor Cody plays a sort of role where he's a defender, obviously, but his role often is to start attacks. When you delve into the statistics of Connor Cody, you will see that he plays some of the most frequent and most successful long balls in world football. And long ball is not a bad term here. This is more Paul Scholes-esque 45-yard passes out to Adama Traore or Jota on the other wing, rather than long ball Burnley football, you know? So that's what Connor Cody does. Romain Saïss is probably the weakest player of the three, but very adept within the system, you know. He doesn't show his weaknesses within the system. It is a system designed so they all work as a team. In terms of backups, this is where Nuno has quite a small squad. That is it. There are four options: Bowley, Cody, Saïss, or Kilman. It is both the strength of Wolves, those players know each other in and out and their role, and a weakness if ever they got injured. Then you move into the wing backs. We always play two wing backs, and wing backs in world football are a very rare commodity to find a good one. We found two. First of all, Matt Doherty on the right-hand side and Johnny on the left-hand side. Their backups being Oscar Burr, who we haven't seen much of. As a Wolves fan, I haven't seen much of him. He's played some of the early Europa League games and he played in some of the cup games, but are meant to be a good academy graduate, and I hope for the best for him, of course. And then we've got Vinagre, Ruben Vinagre, the first of our Portuguese colony at Wolves. He's young. He loves to bomb forward, does Vinagre. He's very, very, very quick. If any of you play Football Manager, he's very, very good on there. Very, very quick, brilliant dribbler. I can see a very bright future for Vinagre. In terms of Premier League players are either underrated or overrated, and there is very rare exception. You are one or you are the other. And in terms of Doherty and Johnny and a couple of others, Wolves squad, they are very, very underrated. These are some of the best fullbacks in the league. You take away Liverpool's fullbacks, there's not many better. There's not many better than Doherty and Johnny. Johnny on Sunday started an attack that ended up with the Dendoncker goal against Aston Villa. And then you had Matt Doherty, who is consistently one of the both highest scoring and assisting right backs in the league. They're just a solid 7 or 8 out of 10 every week. Very, very dependable. Then you move into the flexibility within the system. There's not much of flexibility, but this is where it happens. Wolves either play 3-5-2 or 3-4-3. Now, if they're playing just two in the centre, it is always Ruben Neves, if they're fit, of course. It is always Ruben Neves and João Moutinho. Now, if you're a Wolves fan, you will know that the best midfielder in Wolves right now is João Moutinho. It is not Ruben Neves. João Moutinho is the 32-year-old finished article. He is a metronome within this system, the true pivot. I love the way he plays football. he just never seems out of position. He has one of the highest footballing IQs I think I've ever seen. He can tackle, intercept. For such a small guy, he's strong. He likes to get dirty, you know? And then he can play these sublime passes out to Jota using the outside of his foot. Honestly, superb. Takes all the corners, takes all the free kicks. I love João Moutinho more than any other player. Then Neves. Neves gets all the plaudits for those incredible long-range goals, and they are fantastic. Yes, I was absolutely at Molineux the night that he scored the wonder strike, you know, that one. And Neves is a very special player. Again, he's very strong IQ, footballing IQ, good football brain, never seems to really be out of position, and has an ability to play long-range passes very successfly, very good at starting attacks, and very good at drifting into the box late, kind of like Frank Lampard used to do, and then hitting that long-range effort. I love Neves. I think if he ever is sold, he's going to cost somebody about £70 million, which is a lot of money. So moving on. Morgan Gibbs-White here is probably the only out-and-out midfielder that we have in backup. He's raw, he's English, he's technically very good. I hope he can sort his off-field issues out because he has a great deal of potential. Particularly if Neves were to leave, you'd assume that Morgan Gibbs-White would come into that role. Time will tell. The other option here, and if Wolves are playing 3-5-2, the 5-man midfield instead of 4, as you can see we've got 4 here. But if we play 5 like we did against Aston Villa, Dendoncker comes in. And Dendoncker, much like Matt Doherty and Johnny, is an extremely underrated and versatile player. He can play this box-to-box role that he often plays under Nuno. And I think he's played about 40 games out of the 50 that we've played this season. Starts. So he is an exceptionally good player. Very consistent. I love Dendoncker. I love the players that go under the radar rather than the ones that get all the press. A Jimenez, for example, or an Adama Traore. But this is the basis of Wolves' very solid defence. This is where Nuno, in my opinion, wins games. Obviously, there are 3 real ways to play football in the Premier League right now. There's an attacking style, either a patient style like Man City or a fast-paced attacking style like Liverpool. Then there are long ball teams, David Moyes' West Ham. I'm sorry, West Ham fans. Something like that, or Burnley, very long-range type of football. And then there are counter-attacking teams, of which I would say Wolves and Sheffield United are best at. And more recently, Wolves have taken counter-attacking football to a new level in the Premier League. I don't think anyone's really played counter-attacking football quite like Wolves. Certainly within the last 4 or 5 years, maybe the last team to really do it successfully was Antonio Conte's 3 at the back counter-attacking Chelsea team. And of course they won the league. Are the Wolves close to doing that? Maybe not just yet. But it is very solid. And when everybody's fit, when Bowley in particular is fit at the back and we're at full strength, they're very difficult to break down. The amount of games that Wolves win 1-0, 2-0, it's that nil that makes this team so successful because they can shut up shop when they want to. Now, moving forward, what you will find is Neves, Moutinho, they sit back in deep-lying playmaker roles. They very rarely drift past this position. If this is the opposition's box and there's the goal, they very rarely come past here. That's the truth. That's the way that they play, which is why Wolves never really get caught out on the break, because Neves and Moutinho are always covering the 2 fullbacks who like to bomb forward and cause those sort of overloads, as they're called. Now we move into these winger positions. Wolves have got 4 options here. Jota, Neto, Adama Traore, and Podence, the young player, another Portuguese player. Podence first, we don't know too much about him. He was bought for about 25 million in January from Olympiacos. We just haven't seen much of him yet. Nuno likes to bed his players into the system to gain the trust, and then we'll see him. We will see him, I'm sure, next season. Then I'll talk about Jota. Jota, week in, week out, is one of the first names on the team sheet because he can score goals, he can attack and go at players. I like the fact that he likes to put himself about. He will chase the loose ends, he will get stuck into a tackle, often a little bit too much. But I do really like Diogo Jota. Neto, young Portuguese, much like a lot of the squad. exceptional dribbler, very, very fast. Probably he's quite raw as a talent yet. Needs to improve defensively and he needs to learn how to take his chances. But he did very well against West Ham, scoring the winner there on a superb volley. But it's the progression. I like the fact that Pedro Neto has improved throughout the season. There's no doubt about that, particularly as we've come back. He's just been a constant threat. Now I'll talk about Adama Traore, who is quite rightly being a player that is in the press such a lot this season. Having seen such a lot of him, he's frightening. He really is frightening. When he's going full pelt, there isn't a more successful dribbler in Europe, at least statistically, and you can see that out on the pitch. He kind of reminds me of when Gareth Bale was at Tottenham. What are you on about, you're saying? Well, it's that combination of power and pace. Like, he's clearly a hench dude, but it's that he can seriously run at players, take them on, go past them, swing in that final ball. And that's what's come into Adama Traore's game this season that wasn't there last season. I mean, Nuno tried him in the right wing back spot, but he doesn't quite have that the footballing defensive IQ. So he moved him further forward, and this season, from all the way back in August through all the way to now, he's just been a revelation. He's just finally, everything has clicked. He's always had the ability to go round a man. Now he's got the ability to go round the man, find that final ball, put that cross into the box, shoot and get shots off onto goal and put them on target, score goals, make assists. Adama is now worth what? 70 or 80 million to get him? He's young, he's Spanish. Of course, somebody's going to come and try and get him. But let's remember, the progression that he's had under Nuno has been superb. Every other manager hasn't quite worked as well. So I'm hoping that Nuno, if he stays, can convince Adama and several others, Ruben Neves, to stay also. The final man in this Wolves system, the one man up top, is Raul Jimenez, our only out-and-out striker, what I would call a system striker. So he will not just stand there like a Aubameyang waiting for a run to go and score a goal. He will make things. He will drop deep. He will come all the way to the halfway line. He provides assists. He's a pretty damn good passer as well. And, of course, as a striker, he will get in the box and he's very, very good with his head and with his finishing. He shows great composure most of the time, and he scored 15 goals this season. And of course, the rarest commodity in world football right now is finding a goal scorer, and Wolves have definitely got a good one in Raul Jimenez. So the next part of my analysis, this is Wolves, this is their tactical brilliance. It is always three at the back. It is always either one of these two systems that work so successfully, and everybody in this counter-attacking system just knows their role and plays it perfectly. This is why Wolves can shut up shop and win games 1-0 and still play well. It's an attractive style of football, genuinely an attractive team to watch at Wolves. But moving forward, is this a temporary brilliant Wolves team, or is this a permanent sign of a team that can challenge for the top 4, the top 6, go for trophies? Well, I believe if it was just temporary, that Wolves would have been found out by now. I mean, last season we ended up in the Europa League, but this season we managed to combine European football with a very, very good, solid, perhaps even great campaign in the league, on the verge of the Champions League. So I would say clearly this is a team that is on the verge of permanent brilliance. But of course they need to add trophies. Now, where do we go from here then? This is a huge summer ahead. And there are two caveats to Wolves' permanent brilliance. First of all, you have to keep your best players. Obviously, teams are going to be after Adama, they're going to be after Raul Jimenez, and they're probably going to be after Ruben Neves as well. You can't sell all three. Not if you're going to continue to challenge. I would potentially cash in on Jimenez because he's the oldest of the players. He's 29. If you're going to get your maximum amount of money for Raul Jimenez, now is the time to do it. So that's what I'd do. You've got to keep your best players, but if you are going to sell them, just sell one at a time so you can find the right replacement without causing too much trouble with the team that relies so much on chemistry. So that's the first part. The second caveat to Wolves' permanent brilliance is, of course, Nuno, who I have called the mastermind. He is very much a mastermind. The backroom staff, they report to Nuno. They were brought in by Nuno. Fosun, they are set up to revolve around a Portuguese-style manager, you keep him happy, blah, 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 blah. The point is, you have to keep Nuno. As a Wolves fan myself, the idea of losing a player, a Neves, Jimenez, is upsetting, but the idea of losing Nuno, the mastermind behind everything that I've seen in front of me, is just, it would upset me. So I really, just anything, Nuno, anything you want, just please sign a new 5-year deal and make everybody happy. I hope the boardroom, and I do believe that Fosun are very capable as owners. They clearly have wads full of cash, and they've surrounded themselves with the right football people. I believe that Nuno will continue to find Wolves a very attractive proposition for himself. And I think he'll sign. But I'm interested to see what the global pandemic crisis, as I'm going to call it, I don't want to use that word in case YouTube strikes me down, but if that has an impact on Wolves, it will not be a good one. So let's see what sort of impact that has on Wolves going forward. So yes, this is a huge summer ahead. Now, if Wolves are going to progress, if Wolves manage to sign Nuno to a 5-year deal, where do they go from there? Well, I've highlighted a couple of players that I think Wolves will want to sign. This is a small team, I've mentioned that before. So if players are going to get injured, if Cody were to get injured, if Bowley were to get injured, Dendoncker would fill in, but then you leave the midfield kind of lacking in numbers too. So I believe that you need to sign a replacement or an upgrade, a talented player, an upgrade on Roman Saiss. Now, for me, there are only, at this level now, Wolves are after some of the best players in the world, or at least the best young players in the world. So the first player I want to talk about is Pau Torres at Villarreal. He's Spanish, he's young. If you're a Wolves fan, I can assure you he is nothing like Jesus Valero, who came on loan from Real Madrid. It was really bad. It was really quite bad for a Real Madrid player. But Pau Torres is very good on the ball, seems a good tackler. For his young age, he seems a very good professional, well liked within the Villarreal dressing room. The second player I think Wolves can upgrade defensively on is a player called Ruben Dias. Well known to the Wolves fans, we've been linked with him before. It's the Portuguese connection, the Portuguese colony in Wolves. It just makes a lot of sense. He's a world-class defender at a not-so-world-class club in Benfica. I think Wolves could get him. They could convince him at this point, since we are on the verge of Champions League football. It's a very attractive proposition. But of course, Ruben Dias' release clause is 65 million euros. If you want the player, go and sign him. But 65 million represents an awfully big outlay considering what's going on in the world right now on just one player. There are other areas in this squad that I believe need updating. So yeah, go and get Ruben Dias potentially if you go and sell Raul Jimenez or someone like that. That's what I think. That's the only way I can see Wolves feasibly going after one player worth 65 million euros. Now, the second area that I think Wolves could be lacking is striker option. I've said before, if Jimenez got injured, who on earth replaces him? Are you going to play Diego Jota more centrally? Then you're leaving the wings quite lacking in numbers. It's such a small squad that this poses a massive issue. So a couple of upgrades that I would recommend if I was Wolves manager. No, I really wouldn't be in charge. But Danny Ings at Southampton has clearly shown the potential that he's had all along and finally shown it on the pitch. He's got rid of those injury problems that he had at Liverpool and now he's bagging goal after goal in a pretty decent Southampton side. But are Wolves a more attractive proposition than Southampton right now? Absolutely. And I think he'd fit in quite well. He's a player who will put himself about and yet score goals as well. He has that bit of pace, very good finisher. I like him. The second player I would target if I was manager up front is Tammy Abraham. He's a player that actually tore Wolves to pieces earlier this season for Chelsea at Molineux. He's in the last 12 months of his contract and he's just seen Timo Werner and Ziyech from Ajax arrive. Now, if I was Tammy Abraham, am I signing that contract? Are they going to sell me and cash in what they can before my contract runs out? Am I actually going to get a run of games under Frank Lampard? There's a lot of question marks there, and it's something that I think if Wolves sold Wolves to Tammy Abraham, I think they could very much get him, and potentially at a cheaper price, considering he's 1 year to go on his contract. So yeah, it's a player I'd target. And then in the midfield, Coutinho is right at the end of his career. Neves, superb player, But is he likely to move? Quite possibly. So the players that I would look to target here is one that we have been linked with in the press, is Paris Saint-Germain's Idrissa Gueye. He spent some time at Everton for one season and he was superb there, earned his move to Paris, but Paris are a club like teetering on the brink of both financial collapse and turmoil at every single avenue. So they probably need funds, and if they do, Idrissa Gueye at 30 years old makes a lot of sense. But to come in at 30 years old, he is a player at the peak of his powers right now. He kind of reminds me of Wilfred Ndidi at Leicester. Second player I like would be Dani Parejo at Valencia. Again, Valencia, another club. They're kind of like Spain's Arsenal, and I don't mean that nastily, Arsenal fans, but like, it's always a club that seems to have problems, either financially or on the pitch or off the pitch or managerially. There's always something. And Dani Parejo as their captain is probably unlikely to leave. But if he were, you could probably prize him to somewhere like Wolves, who have a Spanish-Portuguese contingent and a manager and a system that Dani Parejo would fit into very nicely. A lesser option here would potentially be Bournemouth's Lewis Cook. I like him. Again, he plays a sort of DM role with balls over the top, a kind of Neves, but he needs to get rid of those injuries and show that he's past those before he can earn a big money move. Particularly if Bournemouth were relegated, he's a player I would look to try and sign. I mean, he's young, he's English. I think he's slightly less raw than Gibbs White, and I think he'd flourish under Nuno and this Wolves team. So yeah, we've gone through the tactics, we've gone through is this permanent, we've gone through is this temporary. I've gone through the additions that I think Wolves could make. My final sort of concluding remarks on Wolves going forward are: get Nuno to sign that contract, buy one or two players to serious quality additions, go for quality over quantity, and there's no end to where this Wolves team could go. I mean, the way that the team is built, the determination within the squad, they're a team I fancy for trophies, and that's not a biased opinion now. It's genuinely a team that just seems to have everything. It just has that chemistry, that tactics that can cause big teams serious trouble. So it's exciting days ahead for Wolves, and particularly if they can get Nuno to sign that new deal. I really do think Wolves mean business. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to talk about Arsenal. I think it's time to take on those Arsenal fans and see where Arsenal can improve. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.